The movie begins in a land called Wallachia. There is a creature that was once a local legend. But among the legends circulating, a dragon landed in the land. At first, the dragon helped the kingdom to help the war, but not long after, the dragon left the country. 20 years later, the scene focuses on a poor family consisting of a father, mother, and children carrying out their respective activities. Even though they seem lacking, they are always grateful and feel happy. They live in a house with a farm in the middle of a meadow, around which there is a forest of pine trees. Among all the family's activities, it appears a boy is plowing the ground with his 2 cows. The boy's name was Luke. Exhausted, Luke fell asleep on the grass not far from his house for a while. Not long after Luke closed his eyes, he was suddenly startled by the sound of a woman's scream. He was surprised to hear that and immediately ran towards the source of the sound, which was in his house. And sure enough, he slowly peeked into his house. He was surprised at the sight he witnessed, seeing his entire family being attacked and slaughtered by a group of assassins known as the bear, the wolf, the scorpion, and the snake. After being satisfied with killing Luke's family, the group of killers then burned Luke's house and planned to split up to carry out their next massacre plan next week. Luke himself was still devastated. He could only cry and watch from afar as his house was being devoured by the fire. He now has nothing but his 2 cows that were previously used to plow the land. He then decided to go to the city and sell his cows to earn money to survive in the future. Arriving in the city, Luke met a royal entourage headed by a king named Razvan. King Razvan came to the city intending to listen to the complaints of his people. Luke used this to demand justice from King Razvan for the events he had just experienced. But instead of getting justice, he was ignored by the king and expelled by his royal guards. Finally, Luke decides to sell his cows to hire a hitman to avenge him. In the middle of a transaction with the buyer of his cow, Luke is lulled by the beauty of a girl he accidentally sees. After finishing the transaction, Luke went to a bar and said he was looking for an assassin. Shortly after he asked this, someone came and offered his services. But while offering his services as a hitman, someone else also offers the same services. A debate was inevitable. The 2 people scrambled to be hired by Luke. Luke, who was confused about this, then chose to run away and broke into a house. The house, it turns out, belongs to a famous blacksmith master in the city. Luke then told the problem he was facing. He also stated that he needed a sword and would exchange his 4 hectares of land instead because he did not have any money at the moment. The blacksmith master then gave him a sword and a piece of advice that Luke must meet a legendary dragon that nests in the high hills of the mountains. The blacksmith master also told him to bring a seed to give to the dragon. At first, Luke did not believe what the master said, but he did not know how else to take revenge for what had happened to him. After he returned from the blacksmith master, Luke began his quest to find the legendary dragon in question. Luke's journey begins with him, armed with a bag on his back, along the hills. During his journey, he meets several people and intends to ask the locals about the legendary dragon's lair, but the people he meets think he is crazy and beat him. Luke finally decided to leave and continue his journey. On the way, he met a mysterious hunter. The mysterious hunter said that he knew the location of the legendary dragon suggestion Luke was referring to and gave directions to it. He then followed the mysterious hunter. At one point, he saw a cave in the middle of the surrounding forest filled with ice even though it was not yet winter. Luke immediately entered the cave. The cave was very wide, and he was standing in a room in the cave. Luke sowed seeds to summon the dragon in the middle of the cave. Because it didn't show up, he called and told the dragon to get out immediately. He was surprised by a large dragon that walked up to him as soon as he shouted. Luke told the dragon what had happened to him. But instead of helping Luke, the dragon tried to attack and bully him. The dragon named Siveth is a female dragon. Unlike other dragons who are known to be able to spit fire from their mouths, Siveth can spit ice from her mouth, which can freeze anything. After Siveth's introduction, Luke again tells about what he wants, but he gets a disappointing answer from the dragon. Siveth refuses to help Luke avenge his revenge because the main reason he asks for her help is revenge. Siveth refuses any kind of help in the name of revenge because, according to her, revenge will only draw you into danger and death. Hearing Siveth's disappointing answer, a disappointed Luke left the cave and left Siveth's lair just like that. Luke then continued his journey, and night fell. He decided to rest after a long journey he had gone through. The following day, Luke woke up because he was surprised by a white horse that woke him up right in front of him, which seemed willing to accompany him to continue his journey. During the trip, he met a good-hearted hunter named Darius. While continuing his journey with Darius, Luke tells what he has experienced during his life. Darius turns out to know for sure about the reputation of the group of assassins who have massacred his family. He then informs Luke that the group of assassins disperse according to the cardinal directions. One member of the assassin group named the Bear will head to his lair in the Broken Lands, which is in the direction of their journey, namely to the north. To apprehend the Bear, Luke and Darius devise a strategy because it is likely that the bear will come with the subordinates he has recruited. When Luke and Darius arrive in the Broken Lands, they decide to spy on the activities of the bear and his gang. In their surveillance, the white horse that had been accompanying them from the start suddenly turned into a white dragon who was none other than Siveth. Darius is very surprised at the change in the white horse and shows his displeasure to Siveth. He states that Siveth had previously refused to help the kingdom when the kingdom needed her, and the kingdom branded Siveth a traitor. Darius' dislike of Siveth's presence puts Luke in a difficult position, where Darius asks Luke to choose between himself or Siveth. Luke states that he needs Darius and Siveth to help him, but Darius, who disagrees with this, then leaves him because Luke does not want to leave Siveth. Time passed, and without realizing it, Luke's whereabouts were known to the bear and his gang. The chase scene is unavoidable. The panicked Luke ran as fast as he could, followed by the bear and his gang behind him, until finally, Siveth came to confront the bear gang. Meanwhile, Luke is still trying to escape from the bear towards the top of the hill. The bear, who is much stronger, easily catches Luke and repeatedly attacks him by twisting his body. It came to a point where Luke's belt, which was used by the bear to twist Luke's body, broke and suddenly made the bear lose his balance, fall into a ravine, and eventually die. The bear's death takes Luke on his next journey accompanied by Siveth. The next trip brought Luke to the wolf's lair. Along the way to the wolf's lair, Luke and Siveth get close to each other until they arrive in a forest area. They are suddenly confronted by the wolf and his gang, and like in the previous fight, Siveth can defeat the pack of the wolf, except for the wolf himself. Siveth gripped the wolf in his grasp to serve as a prisoner whose job it was to show Luke and Siveth to the rest of the herd. Thus, according to the wolf, the closest trip is to the snake's lair. It turned out that when Luke got there, Darius had arrived first and carried out his action to attack the snake. But unfortunately, Darius' attempt to attack the snake is discovered, and he is in a corner. Seeing Darius, who was in a difficult position, Siveth did not remain silent. She then helped Darius to attack the snake's flock by spitting ice from her mouth. In a fight, it causes Luke and Siveth to be caught off guard, so the wolf can escape from the bonds that bind him and try to escape. But Siveth managed to prevent it by freezing his arm until it broke and separated from his body. Meanwhile, the snake, who was trying to escape, was successfully chased by Luke, resulting in a fierce battle between the two. From the fight, the snake was successfully paralyzed by Luke. The night after the fight, Luke asked about the whereabouts of the scorpion. The snake says it's all in vain because the snake won't tell him about the scorpion's location. When the morning came, Luke and Darius headed to the city, aiming to hand the snake into prison. That night, while Darius was at the bar, he was suddenly attacked by the royal troops. Apparently, the attack was the aftermath of being caught and imprisoned by the snake. The attack revealed that the 4 criminals were indeed employed by the kingdom to kill poor people so that food supplies were not disturbed and food availability was maintained, and the kingdom seemed prosperous. Evidence of the king's cruelty appears from a king's order to kill the poor people that Darius picked up in the snake's lair. At that time, one of the guards saw a bag containing the arrest warrant taken by one of the royal soldiers. After the king and his army left, the scorpion came to free the snake from prison. Luke and Darius, who knew about it, then gave chase to the snake and the scorpion who had escaped prison. Luke and Darius arrived in a snowy area. Unexpectedly, they were ambushed by a group of people. In the attack, Darius asked Luke to take the horse and walk towards the horse. But when Luke ran to his horse, suddenly he was caught by the sting of a stick by the scorpion who suddenly appeared. On the one hand, Darius can face the scorpion's troops one by one, but then, the time has come for him to face the scorpion head-on. Meanwhile, Luke, who was cornered and overwhelmed, was also attacked by the snake. At the same time, Siveth is disguised as a cat to reclaim evidence of the cruelty of King Razvan from a soldier who the other day took the evidence from Darius. While nearly succeeding in seizing evidence of King Razvan's atrocities, Siveth has a vision that Luke is in a state of emergency. Siveth turned back into a dragon and rushed to help Luke and Darius. Darius, who is still dealing with the scorpion, can throw the stick at the scorpion. Resistance from the scorpion is inevitable until they both fall into the water. Darius won the battle in the water and managed to stick the arrow he took from the water into the scorpion's neck without him knowing. The scorpion, who experienced this, died on the spot. When Siveth arrived at the fight's location, she saw that Luke was already in a battered condition due to being attacked by the snake. Siveth was furious and killed the snake right away. After killing the snake, Siveth rushes to take Luke to the treatment plant through the forest, where a woman named Wana works. As it turns out, Wana is a girl who catches Luke's attention while in town. The place of treatment is in the form of a large building surrounded by beautiful gardens and forests. It turns out that Wana is a woman Luke has liked since he lived in the city. But the fun didn't last long. King Razvan and his army, followed by the people, came to where Luke and Siveth were. The arrival of the king and the people intended to expel Siveth because she was considered a traitor to the kingdom. The people who heard this agreed and supported King Razvan. In this fierce meeting, unexpectedly, the wolf suddenly appeared among them. The wolf apparently still survives, and the purpose of his arrival is to dismantle all the evil behavior of the king. He ordered him to kill the poor people, so the kingdom looked prosperous. Hearing this, Siveth then offered protection to anyone who would be honest about the king's treatment. Some of the king's guards began to raise their voices and tell the cruelty of King Razvan. Until in the end, King Razvan was forced to step down from his throne by a group of guards and his people. King Razvan, who couldn't dodge anymore, was handcuffed by his bodyguards and his own people, so he couldn't escape. In the end, the entire current population had learned the truth. The people also realized that Siveth was not a traitor dragon all this time, but King Razvan instigated the people to think that Siveth was a traitor to the kingdom. At the end of this story, Luke can return to his home and live happily with Wana by rebuilding his farm. On one occasion, Luke, Wana, and the people who came from the city to visit him to celebrate and have a feast together. Not to be missed, Siveth, who is also currently a part of the people, can live in peace. The moral that can be learned from this movie is that upholding justice requires strength to overcome the obstacles that must be faced. However, these obstacles do not have to be traversed alone. But if we have friends to jointly uphold justice, all these obstacles will be borne together.